Okay, let's sort of unpack this. We're doing a deep dive today into Kievan Rus's.
Right, that first major East Slavic state, 9th to mid-13th century, roughly.
And it's fascinating how its whole life really revolved around the Dnieper River.
Absolutely, that connection, the Baltic down to Byzantium, it was the core.
So our goal here is to get a handle on how this huge state was structured and maybe figure out why it ultimately fell apart so completely.
Well, before we even get to the structure, we kind of have to tackle the origin story.
Yes, the big controversy, right?
The Normanist versus anti-Normanist debate. It's fundamental.
So this is the question of who the Ruses actually were, the ruling group. Were they Scandinavians, Vikings, basically?
That's the Normanist view, yeah. Linking Rus to the Old Norse word rotatsi, which Finns used for Swedes.
Or the alternative.
The anti-Normanist view argues they were, indigenous Slavs, maybe linked to a local river name like the Rus.
And the really crucial thing here, you were saying, is that this isn't just old history.
Not at all. It's very much alive. It's become a modern memory war.
How so?
Because the origin story is used today by countries like Ukraine, Russia, Belarus to, legitimize their own national narratives, their claims to continuity and sovereignty. It's incredibly high stakes.
Okay, so bearing that foundational debate in mind, let's look at the state itself. It really kicks off with the Rurik dynasty.
Yeah, traditionally dated to Rurik around 862. And then Oleg captures Kiev around 882, makes it the capital.
And he's the one credited with unifying that famous trade route.
The route from the Varangians to the Greeks. That name tells you almost everything you need to know.
Because the state was fundamentally about trade.
Exactly. It was a mercantile state, primarily. Its wealth didn't come from land in the same way as, say, Western feudalism.
Right.
It came from controlling and taxing the stuff moving along the Dnieper. Furs, wax, honey, and slaves. High-value mobile goods.
So if that trade got disrupted...
the state was in serious trouble. Its economic basis was inherently, fluid.
And it reached its peak under figures like Vladimir I and Yaroslav the Wise.
Definitely. Vladimir brings in Christianity around 988, a massive step. Marries a Byzantine princess, imports that whole cultural and governmental package.
Huge strategic move.
And then his son, Yaroslav the Wise, reigns from 1019 to 1054. He gives them their first written law code, the Ruskaya Pravda. That's a sign of real state sophistication.
So you have this complex state, laws, trade. What did the society actually look like? Who had power?
Well, you had the boyars, the elite, but it seems to have been somewhat fluid, based on service to the prince, not just birthright initially.
Okay.
And at the bottom, you had unfree labor. The kolpi, who were essentially slaves, and the zakups, maybe more like indentured servants working off debts.
But there was also this other power center in the cities.
Yes, the Vish, the city assembly, made up of free men. It could be a pretty powerful check on the prince's authority, especially in places like Novgorod.
So sophisticated trade, laws, civic elements. Why did it all fall apart? What was the fatal flaw?
I think the internal structure was the real killer. The political system, specifically the succession principle.
Lesvitsa.
Exactly, the Lesvitsa, or rotational succession. The idea was that rule passed laterally to brothers before sons across the dynasty, with Kiev as the ultimate prize.
Which sounds like it would just cause endless fighting.
It did. Constant civil wars between uncles, nephews, brothers, all jockeying for position, try to move up the ladder towards Kiev.
So it actively undermined unity.
Absolutely. It basically incentivized fragmentation. They even tried to fix it at the Lubeck Congress in 1097, but that just sort of formalized the splits, letting princes keep their own lands as hereditary estates.
Okay, so the internal structure's cracking, then the external pressures mount.
Right. Once it was internally weak, it was vulnerable. The Polovtsians, or Cumans, nomadic groups, start seriously disrupting the Dnieper trade route in the 12th century.
Cutting off the economic lifeline.
Precisely. Kiev's importance fades, power shifts north and west.
And then the final blow.
The Mongols, Batu Khan. They smash the fragmented principalities of the Kelka River in 1223. A warning shot, really.
But not the end.
No. The end comes when Kiev itself is sacked and utterly destroyed in 1240. Just devastation.
And what followed? The Tatar yoke.
Yeah, over 2 centuries of Golden Horde domination. That fundamentally changed things. It introduced a much harsher, centralized system of tribute and tax collection.
And the legal culture shifted too.
Drastically. Away from the Ruskaya Pravda, which was relatively mild, few capital punishments, towards a much more autocratic, brutal system reflecting Mongol practices. A big shift.
So, wrapping this up, why does this ancient history still matter so much for you, the listener? today?
Well, Kievan Rus is seen as the cultural ancestor, the cradle for modern Ukraine, Russia, and Belarus.
And figures like Vladimir the Great are claimed by, well, multiple sides.
Exactly. Both Moscow and Kiev claim him as their founding father, using that history to back up very modern, often conflicting political claims.
So the lesson here is maybe about structure, that internal coherence matters more than just size or initial success.
I think so. The ultimate failure, perhaps, was that tension they never resolved.
Between what?
Between that local power, the self-determination represented by the Vish, and the idea of dynastic unity that the Lestitsa was supposed to provide but ended up destroying.
And you could argue that same tension between central control and regional identity still echoes across Eastern Europe today.
It's a pattern that seems tragically persistent, that unresolved structural problem, centuries later.